By Sports, Steve Wiltfong joins us, Paul Catalina, Craig, and David Smoak. Steve, thanks for your time. What do you think the commitment and reaffirming the commitment of Austin Novosad mean to Baylor?
Well, it means that they keep their franchise quarterback in the fold in the 2023 class. Look, this is a program that's on the rise. Went the Big 12, beat Ole Miss in a New Year's Six Bowl. It's a program that's got a lot of excitement around it. A program, just a school in general, where all the sports have a lot of excitement around it. And Austin Novosad's one of the quarterbacks that college coaches were most excited about in the 2023 cycle. He threw for almost 3,400 yards and 40 touchdowns as a junior. He's put on 15 pounds since that season, so 6'3", up to 190 pounds. He had a terrific showing at the Elite 11 finals, throwing alongside his peers, some of the best quarterbacks in the country. He's a guy that was coveted by Ohio State late, Notre Dame late, Texas A&M was looking to flip him, but Baylor, he's staying with the Bears, loves Coach Bell, has been in the fold since December of 2021, and loves the direction of the program and wants to help him continue to trend upwards.
Steve, as far as quarterbacks go, his reaffirming his commitment to Baylor kind of knocks down the four-star quarterbacks to, 2 or 3 now, and puts a few programs, including Texas A&M, in a little bit of scramble mode, doesn't it?
Well, this is now turning into spatula season, my friend. And, we saw Purdue quarterback commit, Ricky Collins decommit last night, LSU trending there. No one's feeling bad for Texas A&M. They had Malachi Nelson on campus this past weekend, 5-star quarterback, number 2 quarterback in the country, or number 2 player in the country. Committed to USC. I'm not saying he's going to flip from USC. I think that a lot was, I think that, USC is still in strong position there. But I think that, A&M, it just goes to show you A&M can get in there, and make some moves. And so, we'll see what happens. Ohio State last year signed Devin Brown, who at this point was committed to USC, ends up in the Buckeyes class and was incredibly talented. So, games are going to be played this fall with young men recruiting early and earlier. Some of them are going to rethink it later, and we'll see what that does to the quarterback shuffle as this process continues. But Austin Novosad, I think there was a time where he was strongly considering flipping to Ohio State too. So Baylor hanging on to one of the nation's best who went through his process the second time, and the Bears went out twice.
Steve, we got a couple years of sample size now at this point. Dave Aranda's certainly not the most outgoing, energetic type of head coach. He has his own style in doing things, and certainly his staff comes into play as well. We just talked to Austin, and he was mentioning, Sean Bell and Jeff Grimes and the great job that all those guys did. But what have you kind of gathered about Dave Aranda, his recruiting prowess, the staff that he's put together, and what they've done in Waco the last couple years?
Well, first and foremost, and I say this everywhere, Dave Aranda's got the best damn haircut in college football. They win 2 games. They win 2 games in the COVID season, 2-7 in his first year, taking over for Matt Rule, which was a program that rebuilt from 1 win. Took a couple years to go 1-7-11. Dave Aranda goes 2-12, and I think you guys are excited about what you're bringing back this year, I would imagine, right? It's a top 15 football team on paper. And this recruiting class is certainly going to add some juice to the program. I think it's easy to fall in love with what Coach Aranda is doing over there and his staff with guys like Coach Grimes and Coach Roberts and Sean Bell and company.
Steve, you were at the Elite 11. That was the first time I think it reached out to you, and you're in the middle of all that, the competition as well. And you mentioned Austin did very, very well. What are the differences between 1 and 11, or whoever ranks during that week? How much of a difference is there between them?
Well, in that setting, not talking about film or anything, but just out there throwing on air, in that setting, I thought Austin Novosad was one of the top 3 or 4 quarterbacks there from a consistency standpoint with his accuracy and arm talent, throwing with precision, throwing with velocity. They try and make you uncomfortable and give quarterbacks some uncomfortable reps to go through. And I thought he was near the top throughout most of the competition.
Steve, who do you think the next big quarterback to commit will be? Now that it's Brock and Glenn and Austin Novosad are off the board.
Well, the highest ranked uncommitted quarterback right now is Ricky Collins. He's number 13 in the country, number 178 nationally. Was committed to Purdue early. He's decommitted. He would be the guy that I look at next.
What about Chris Parsons? Or Parsons?
Yeah, Chris Parsons out there in play as well. Been picked up an offer from TCU last night. So they'll try and make a move. Mississippi State's had some momentum. SMU had him on campus for an official visit. We'll see what he does.
Steve, a couple years now of seeing sort of the dramatic shift in college football, whether that be conferences and realignment or NIL or whatever. Have you, as somebody who's been in the industry a long time, noticed that much of a difference in terms of the teams, the players, and kind of how the whole operation works?
I'm sorry, you broke up on me.
The last couple of years in college football, there's been a lot of dramatic changes, whether that be NIL or realignment or whatever the case may be. As somebody in the recruiting industry, have you seen those changes have a massive impact on the recruiting game, or is it kind of business as usual from where you sit?
Well, every program has to have some sort of NIL plan, whether that's showing the athletes what their current roster's making, or maybe what kind of returns they could have as soon as they're eligible to have them as well. So I think that NIL has become a relevant deal in college football that certainly wasn't around 2 years ago.
Do you feel like, Steve, that the change in landscape in the future with Texas, Oklahoma, and the SEC, and now USC, UCLA, has that made anything so far? Has that changed anything so far with any of those schools in their classes?
I haven't seen major ramifications one way or the other. Time will tell with USC and UCLA, certainly, as it was just announced for them. But Oklahoma and Texas always recruited at a high level anyway. And we saw Texas recruit top 5 classes in the Big 12, and Oklahoma's consistently been in our top 10. So status quo for those programs, Texas particularly, we'll see what happens. Is they've always recruited well. Let's see if Coach Sarkisian and his staff can create a culture, a new culture there that's tough and makes that football team physical, because that's where they've really been lacking. We've seen them have good quarterbacks and good receivers and flashy offensive play calling, and I say the same thing about USC. But those programs have been struggling around the point of attack, and the NFL draft has shown that to be true. And that's what Coach Sarkisian and company are trying to overhaul there. And I think Texas has done a tremendous job addressing it on the trail, but we'll see if they're able to develop and cultivate those players. Texas in the past has recruited high-profile offensive linemen and defensive linemen too. Last year they had the highest-ranked offensive line class in the country. They recruited a lot of defensive front 7 players from SEC country, and they're rocking and rolling again this cycle. I'm just interested to see what it looks like if the taste of the water changes in Austin with this new regime in their player development around the line of scrimmage.
That's the question everyone's been asking for a long, long time. Austin, you mentioned Novosad and what he did at Elite 11 and where he was. How close is he to being a 5-star quarterback compared to 4-star?
Well, we moved him into our top 100 recently, and our ratings are based off the NFL draft. So we have 32 5-stars a year. I think he's in the top 90 for us right now. So, no, he's on the trajectory up, and we'll see what kind of senior season he has and compare it alongside his peers.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate your time. We appreciate you. I know you're busy. Steve Wiltfong, 247 Sports, Director of Recruiting for them on Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. Yesterday we were talking